We gonna take it there. Come on. Hey, the party people in the place to be. You need to put your hands high. Come party with me. Might be the last time you get it. Before you leave in the day, you gon' know who did it. Say, hey, oh. Alright. Say, hey, oh. Alright. Come on. Oh, here we go, y'all. Say what? Y'all want to shout it out? Huh? Go ahead, give my mic. Turn it up. Yeah, we on. Let's go. Hey, shadow guard, I remember on the boulevard. Used to hook the speakers up and have a dance on. Block party, Joe, the place was packed. The whole neighborhood showed out. Gave each other dap. It was like that. No hate as such. The music had us feeling like we can't be touched. Make a line. Be sure you wearing your best shoes, the best dancer. We all knew showing off the best songs. Ladies and gentlemen, find anything and beyond. Bring the clocks back. Oh. Yeah. We gotta go, y'all. They said we gotta go, y'all. We can't be here all night. We're gonna party for the moment. Rock. Feel that? Let the band rock out. Oh. Hey. Gotta listen what the people say. Good God, you gotta listen what the people are saying. Come on. You gotta listen what the people are saying. Got me, Junior? Plug me in. Plug number 2. Got me, Junior? Right there. We just getting warmed up. Come on. Just as we rehearse, y'all. Gotta listen what the people say. Gotta listen what the people say. Gotta listen what the people say. To the bridge, we gon' take it there. Just as we rehearse, y'all. We gon' take it there. Come on. Hey, the party people in the place to be. You need to put your hands high. Come party with me. Might be the last time you get it. Before you leave in the day, you gon' know who did it. Say, hey, oh. Alright. Say, hey, oh. Alright. Come on. Oh, here we go, y'all. So what? Y'all want to shout it out? Huh? Go ahead, give my mic. Turn it up. Yeah, we on. Let's go. Hey, shadow guard, I remember on the boulevard. Used to hook the speakers up and have a dance on. Block party, Joe, the place was packed. The whole neighborhood showed out. Gave each other dap. It was like that. No hate as such. The music had us feeling like we can't be touched. Make a line. Be sure you wearing your best shoes, the best dancer. We all knew showing off the best songs. Ladies and gentlemen, find anything and beyond. Bring the clocks back. Oh. Oh. Yeah. We're gonna party for the moment. Rock. Let the band rock out. Oh. Hey. You gotta listen what the people say. Good God. You gotta listen what the people are saying. Come on. You gotta listen what the people are saying.
Can you focus on me? Baby, can you focus on me? So, how the faucet's running and I keep looking at you. Stuck on your phone or you're stuck in your zone. And you don't ever do, but I don't wanna give up. Baby, I just want you to get up. Lately, I've been a little fed up. Wish you would just focus on me. Can you focus on me? Baby, can you focus on me? Can you focus on me? Baby, can you focus on me? Lazy and broke. No, we get this money, so I guess I can't complain. But I feel alone even when we're alone. And that don't cause a thing, but I don't wanna give up. Baby, I just want you to get up. Lately, I've been a little fed up, yeah. I wish you would just focus on me. Can you focus on me? Oh, yeah. Baby, can you focus on me? Can you focus on me? Baby, can you focus on me? Baby, focus. Can't you see? I just wanna love you, baby. I'll be in my eyes. Ooh.
Make it last forever. Don't let our love be. Let's make it last. Let's make it last forever and ever. Don't let our love be. Let me hear you tell me you love me. Let me hear you say you never leave me. Girl, that will make me feel so right. Let me hear you tell me. Let me hear you say you'll never leave me, baby, until the morning light.
You make me feel the way you make me
Don't let me to make it last forever and ever. Wonderful, your love is joy. That's what I feel when I'm with you. That's me. The world could compare to what we have, baby. It feels so good. I'm so glad you're mine. Make it last forever. Know that I love you. Make it last forever and ever. Ooh, give me kisses, love me, hold me, sweet me, kiss me, come on, I love make it last forever and ever. Don't let our love be.
All right, shalom, shalom. This is Shika Atiba, and I'm here with a panel of people. So far, we're waiting for Katrina to come on, but today we're continuing on with the Israelite woman, well, the state of the Israelite woman. And so we started last week with her heart. And so her heart actually, we started with her self-esteem, who she is, how does she identify her identity. And so this week we decided to speak about her man, which is a big part of any woman's heart, but specifically Israelite women, we have to understand who we are first and then go into our men and how we live that out biblically. So with no further ado, I'm Shika Atiba from Christianity on Trial. That's joined the group where Christianity is on trial. Now I'll go ahead and introduce my panel. We have Mayanah Hasoferet. Mayanah, you want to say hello? Okay, you want to tell them about your ministry and your show?
Oh, okay, good for that. Yes, I am the founder of Genesis 2 Ministries, Inc., and it's a ministry that caters specifically to Hebrew women or women in general to acquire and to learn about accurate biblical feminine identity. Very often we get that misrepresented because up until now, the narrative has been largely owned by the masculine principle, and even if not with malicious intent, they aren't the most well-versed or informed about the feminine principle, very likely because they are very invested in their own identity and just aren't attuned to what's necessary or needed for the woman. And so very often we get misrepresentations, and we only learn about ourselves through the lens of the masculine principle because they are the principal purveyors or distributors of the narrative. And so Genesis 2 Inc. Attempts to enter into the market and provide women with the resources and information that they need to construct accurate, healthy, proactive feminine identities from a biblical Hebrew perspective. And then also I'm the host of Under the Palm Hebrew Women Speak, which is a panel of brilliant, well-informed, extremely spiritually balanced women who reflect on what's going on in current events as well as in biblical studies and engage the people from this uniquely feminine perspective. I also am a returning panelist on the Relationship Challenge, which is hosted by Emunah Israel. Prayerfully, she'll join us a little later on. And her platform invites the masculine principle to sit at the table and engage in various topics as it relates to the ways in which we interact with one another and with our Elohim.
All right, hallelujah. And let me go to our next panelist, which is Ashanti Doc. You want to introduce yourself and your platforms?
Shalom. Shalom, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Cool. All right. Formally, I want to say shalom, shalom, weberachot mishpacha wahabarim. That means peace and wellness to family and friends out there. Want to say praise the Most High, Yahweh, the Lord God of Israel, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. My name is Ashanti, like the tribe. On Facebook, I'm Shanti Doc. On YouTube, I'm 916 Shan. Currently, I'm not on any panels or anything like that. However, I do help out time to time on the Sabbath, bringing lessons with my brother B.A. Ben Abraham, and our congregation is called Love Unlimited. We're based out of Sacramento and Marysville. So pretty much I just bring out information as the Most High uses me and sees fit. I have a YouTube channel, 916 Shan, 916 SHAN, and I'm pretty much here to pretty much spread the truth of the word in love, compassion, grace, mercy, and long suffering or patience with the people, as the Most High has allowed me to do, and I wanted to extend that to others. So I'm here to help out, build the kingdom in any way I can, helping out the brethren, which means brothers and sisters, and I've pretty much taken a liking to working with the sisters, most definitely. to build them up, encourage, and uplift. And that's what I'm here for. Thank you, Sheikah, very much for inviting me here. What's up to my sis Mayanah on here? What's up to Brother BA on here? And I'm not too sure whom else is here. I think was that Katrina? Is Katrina invited here? Shalom,
Yeah, she's
sis.
trying to get on right now.
Okay. And anybody else who's coming on? I think Mayanah said Emunah was coming on. Shalom, shalom to everyone. And I'm ready to add as much as I can to the dialogue. I hope whatever I bring is edifying, and I hope whatever I bring is research validated and prayed upon, studied upon as well. Praise the Most High.
Hallelujah. And so we have two brave lions joining the Lionesses today as we discuss this. And they are, let me go to Sam first. Sam, anytime I need him, I'm like, Brother Sam, I need you to help me. He's like, whatever you need, sis, whatever you need. So we're welcome to have him. So Sam, can you introduce yourself and your platforms?
Shalom, family. My name is Brother Sam Addison with Defenders of the Way, which is a ministry of Yah's Awakened House, headquarters in Baltimore. We are a Bible-based ministry going from house to house in fellowship and breaking the bread and in the rebuilding of our nation. We have several works that we're working on. At the moment, we're one of the main projects is our Trumpet Freedom Enterprises, in which we're getting local businesses to come together, melanated peoples to come together, entrepreneurs to come together, and to network and pool our resources, and mainly to give back to the community and rebuilding our communities, one city at a time. So we have several ministries that branch off from there, Bible studies, broadcasts. My brother would be best able to give you guys all the details with that. I don't keep up with that stuff. I focus on keeping my hands to the plow and doing the work and help build our nation. Appreciate you guys having me here, and I look forward to allowing the Most High to use me in whatever way that he sees fit.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get Katrina on. She's having technical difficulties. Okay, and so we'll go ahead to Brother BA, if you can introduce yourself and the work that you do.
Yes, much love and shalom to all people, and all praises due to the super mighty I am, known as Yahweh. My name is B.A. Abbas Shema bin Abraham, straight out of Sacramento, California. Pretty much, I'm just a single brother just doing my thing, man. Not really out here looking to be Mr. Bad Guy, Mr. Super Guy. I'm out here to promote integrity, to provoke the brothers to change their behavior, so we can most definitely be a light to the nations as the Most High has chosen our people to be. I don't seclude myself just to Israel. I also look for everybody, every human being under the sun, all sons of Adam and Eve. And I'm a host on the Man Up segment. Like I said once before, our goal was to bring integrity back to the male image, because the male image is being attacked. So our goal was to make sure that the male was being properly put in the right place in order how the Most High created him to be an Abba, to be an Abba. And then for those who are familiar with the Hebrew, I don't have to get into that. You pretty much know what that is. Other than that, I'm just here on the panel. Much love to all. Shalom and much love. I'm fall back.
All right, thank you for that. And we finally got Katrina in. Yay, Katrina. Thank you for making it. So would you go ahead and introduce yourself and your platforms, please? Katrina?
Shalom. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Hit your mic again. There you
okay,
go.
now?
Mm-hmm.
All right, shalom, everyone. So this is Sister Katrina from Strong Righteous Women in Yah. And I'm glad that everyone is here. I'm just running a little behind, so I'm gonna need a moment to get the baby settled. But I hope everyone is open to learn today, open to love today, and hear what each other has to say. And hopefully we can come to some type of agreement or some type of understanding. And that's all I have to say for now. And thank you for letting me join. Shalom.
Okay, so I think that's everybody. Somebody is trying to get onto the chat. But before we do that, let me go ahead with the first question and get the panelists' feelings on this topic. And so the first question that we had actually brought up is submission. Is submission a form of worship, or is submission something created to give order in the home? What are your thoughts? And we'll go ahead and start with Mayanah.
Shalom. Yeah, I had to unmute. Submission can be a form of worship if it's misdirected. Submission is supposed to be, according to Torah, the exclusive property or privilege of the Most High, and you really shouldn't be submitting to any other powers. You can't put anyone before the Most High. That's like the first of our commands. And submission, the way that it gets represented in modernity and in some of these contemporary conversations, the man is put in the stead of the Most High, and that in those cases, it can be a form of worship, because that person is, like I said, put in the stead of the Most High. He's sort of an obstacle before you get to the Most High, and then that's problematic. But submission in the original senses of maybe like submitting to wisdom, submitting to righteousness, submitting to right-headed thinking, that's just, observing a particular order or observing that which is right. But when you put the man there with no credentials other than his manness, then that's wrong-headed.
I definitely agree with that, because, once we move on, our genitalia will not be moving on with us, right? So therefore, we have to understand what the purpose behind the revelations that the Most High gives us in regards to gender. Okay, so can I have BA, would you like to give me your thoughts on submission?
Okay, give me a quick moment. I'm out publicly out skating ring with my daughter.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, no, here I come. All right. Now, what was the question again?
We're talking about submission. Is it a form of worship, or is it a form of worship, or is it a suggestion for order in the home? What are your thoughts?
Well, how I would address that is this. We need to understand when it comes to submission, according to the internet Hebrew, when I say to men, they have no idea what that means. They think submission is making a woman bow down to them and making them do domestic duties within the home. Number one, if you're going to call yourself a Hebrew Israelite, or you're going to come onto the covenant of the Most High that He made with Israel, we need to understand what it means to be submissive. And it doesn't mean rulership. What these brothers do is they act like the imperialists. They act like the slave master who they always run their mouths about. So submission, we need to understand what the Most High is required, and then what He has required of human beings to do. Then we can talk about submission. That's how I look at it. Now, when it comes to submission, I know it as if humbling yourself, and to me, how I see it is you humble yourself to the one who you love or who you serve. It's in Mark chapter 10, where Christ, He said, the Gentiles, and I'm paraphrasing, He said the Gentiles, they want to rule over each other, but for you, Israel, it was not so. So the brothers, what they need to do is go back to the beginning and understand the concept of rule. They need to understand what the Most High has already revealed. If anybody that thinks that ruling over a woman is submission, they are completely lost. They're completely out of order. And we need to most definitely make sure that we're willing to relearn, to be born again according to what's written in the gospel. So I'm going to fall back.
Thank you for that. That's really important. And me and Mayanah, we had a conversation with a gentleman online. I won't bring up things, but we had a conversation, and I'm like, what else can the Israelite woman do besides, we're going to school, we're going to work, we're taking care of children, we're even taking care of our home. So what else can we do? And so therefore, he commented, submit to your man. And I'm like, okay, in what ways? How are we not doing that? And he really couldn't answer it. And it was really like, okay. So then I looked at the gentleman's profile picture, and he had a picture of a woman bowing down to a man. And so I think that summary of what the idea that is out right now of submission is accurate. So let me go to and Emunah just came in. Hi, Emunah, how you doing?
Shalom, 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 sis. How are you? All praise be to the Most High. Just came in. It's a crazy day, but I made it.
I understand. I just drove 7 hours from watching my nephew graduate, so I understand. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your platforms?
Mahmoud Israel. Across all social media, the Under the Palm on YouTube, TRC on Debate Talk for You, basically an author, many things, I'm just here to join the conversation and see how we can proceed with being edified with what we have to share. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your presence. And so right now we're talking about submission. Is it a form of worship, or is it a suggestion for order in the home? And so I think I'm going to go with the next panelist, Ashanti. Can we get your insight on that?
All right. I would say submission, it's used for order in the home. And in the sense over here in America, order in the home means cook my food, wash my dishes, iron my clothes, do what I say, when I tell you to do it, how I tell you to do it. Submission actually, in the biblical terms, it would be more of a voluntary subjection. When you want somebody to submit, in our sense, it would be more so reciprocal. When you're actually putting, yourself in the Most High's shoes, so to speak, like for the man to say, this woman is supposed to submit, he doesn't realize he actually submits first when he gives, or he provides, or he nurtures, or he serves his wife and his children, if he has wife and children, right? And then the woman is to reciprocate that. That woman is to actually give back in voluntariness, because that man has voluntarily served. And so when the man voluntarily serves, the woman has no problem submitting or voluntarily serving in reciprocation to what she has received. And what she has received first is definitely obedience from the Most High. And it's obedience from the Most High because the man answers to what he's supposed to do, and then he does what he's supposed to do, and the woman in return does what she's supposed to do. So I think we have to understand what submission is. We're supposed to be submitting or serving or voluntarily subjecting ourselves one to another, building each other up. We are given gifts to, serve one another, and ultimately we're actually serving the Most High. But the word worship in the Hebrew, sometimes it means to do reverence, sometimes it means to do obeisance, sometimes it's just to humble yourself, right? And so you look at the context in which the word is used a lot, and pretty much any obeisance you pay or reverence you pay to somebody is ultimately saying we worship the Most High Yahweh, because it's the Most High Yahweh's spirit that's actually driving that person to be obedient, to serving you righteously in order for you to reciprocate that. So like my brother BA said, over here in America, we've caught on to this thing of lording over and ruling over one another. We just want some power, control, some prestige, some domination. We just want to run everything. And thing is, we're supposed to be working with one another to build one another up. And that's what the kingdom actually is to look like. So with that, I'll say that.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And I think last time when we talked about her, of course, we couldn't talk about her without sometimes veering off into her man. But something that was said was that oppressed men seek to oppress women, in that they're looking for a space to say, I rule. I may not rule out there, but I rule in here. And while that is understandable at times, we are also oppressed out there. We're also being told what to do at times when we don't like it and things like that. So when we come home, we also would like the same amount of peace that you would like. And so therefore, we have to understand that we aren't to bring the world into our home. We ought to treat our homes how we would like the world to be. Okay. So let me go ahead to Sam, and then we'll have Emunah. Brother Sam, you there?
Yes, I'm still here.
All right, we're talking about submission. Is it a form of worship, or is it a suggestion to give order in the home? Or what do you think it is?
Good question there. Submission is definitely a part of the worship experience. The act of worship itself, in its verbal context, in the sense of action of performing something, is in its essence the act of submission, the act of submitting, the man himself submitting to the word and the will of the Most High, and to one another, actually. Someone made the statement here, and actually I've been doing quite a bit of studying into this subject of worship. So that's interesting that you merge these two subjects here. But yes, submission is definitely a part of worship. It is a part of worship. We cannot worship the Most High without submitting to the Most High and His word. The very act of submission is descriptive of worship in itself. And so we cannot separate submission from worship. And so, no, it is not a suggestion. The word of God, in no sense, in no shape, form of the word, is ever a suggestion. It is a commandment. And therefore, there is a divine order that the Most High Himself has established. And it has been corrupted, of course, and abused by mankind. I do agree with that. The European, Americanized, Hellenistic way of viewing things is quite different than what our ancestors believed and practiced. Quite frankly, as far as you guys stated, having the women barefoot and in the kitchen and ignorant and, sitting at home and uneducated and all of that sort of stuff is not the depiction of the Hebrew woman that the scriptures give. I'm sure you guys have gone over Proverbs, the 31st chapter, I believe it is, at some particular juncture, and you'll find find that the Hebrew woman is one that is industrious. She is very highly intelligent. She, you know, her duties and the duties of a virtuous woman, you know, encompasses business, academics, you know, agriculture, you know, all aspects of life. So she is not limited in any aspect, you know, to be in a to be a servant or slave, house slave. That is the, you know, like someone else mentioned, the Europeanized or the Hellenized version of submission. But as I stated, there is a biblical version and a biblical view of order and submission, and that is not a suggestion in the scriptures. You know, the God is the head of man, the Most High, if you will, is the head of man, and man is the head in the family. I like I said, I think, and someone else has said here a few times, is that, you know, we get our concept and our paradigm of submission twisted. But yes, it is absolutely an aspect of worship. The man must lead the woman in worship by submitting himself to the words, to the law and commandments of the Most High. And if he does that, then he would in no way put you know, his wife, the queen, or his sister, in for that, in that sense, in any slavery position of slavitude. You know, he's going to build her up and not, you know, put her down in such a, you know, non-effective position. So that's not the biblical view, but there is, you know, the biblical view is submission. It is a part of worship. We cannot take it away from worship and be biblically correct. But yeah, we have to, as men, we have to lead by example and submit ourselves, not only according to the New Testament scriptures. I'm not sure if everyone here is, you know, with the New Testament, but in the New Testament, it lets us know that we are to submit ourselves one to another. So that means, you know, we are to submit ourselves as brethren, one to another, you know, and that just means to, you know, to esteem them, you know, a bit higher. It means, it doesn't mean that you lower yourself, you know, it just means that you decide that your awesomeness, your royalty is not going to be diminished by, you know, giving this person a pass for whatever reason, whether it be because it's their position, you know, or for the sake of peace sake. And if we do that, if we keep the commandments as is, you know, given, if we keep the words of the Most High, then we'll find that, you know, everything runs smoothly. But the problem is rebellion. The men don't want to submit to God, to the Most High, and women don't want to submit and be submissive in the family structure, which is very important. And order is very important. There can only be one head. There's not, but as my mom say, she's the neck that turns the head. So, you know, it's very, and that was very, and I'll close with this. It was very insightful for me when my mom said that. I said, well, Mom, my dad's the head. She's like, well, I'm the neck that turns the head, which shows you, you know, the importance of the woman. And that made a lot of sense to me. Yes, the man is the head, but as my mom say, the woman is the neck that turns that head, and neither can do without each other. So we have to learn how to be submissive and in subjection. One, submit ourselves as the apostles of Mashiach said, submit ourselves one to another. We forget about that. And so I just would like to bring that point out. We oftentimes talk about husbands, wives submitting to husbands and all of that, but we are commanded to be submissive and orderly in everything that we do. And yes, submission is an act of worship. It's not a suggestion. It is definitely part and parcel of worship.
All right, hallelujah. I think that was a good summation right there. I need somebody. Maxwell, go ahead. Mute your mic. Okay. Thank you. All right. That was a good summation, and that's actually how I understood it. And so a lot of times, even when I was a Christian, I was in church, Dr. Evans would say, you know, you wonder why your home is in chaos, and it's because you're out of alignment. And the alignment goes just like that, the Most High, man, woman, and then children. And so therefore, when there's something out of alignment, the first place that we should be looking for, well, we know the Most High is perfect, so there's nothing wrong with him. Okay, so the first place we need to look is at the head. And sometimes I think in our community, our males don't understand that, because how can you sit online on social media and everything and talk about your woman, not realizing that this woman is the reflection of you and your leadership or lack thereof? It seems like everybody else knows this, and it seems like, yes, there is something, you know, with gender, but it seems like to me that our men are the most diligent about sitting on social media and pointing the fingers at their women, and in every, not every avenue, but specifically on social media, behind that keyboard, it is all out attack on us, but you're supposed to be with us. And so when I see that happen, it kind of disgusts me and makes me wonder, I mean, what is going on here? Is it that person going through a personal crisis or what? But let's get Emunah's take on this, and then we'll move on to the next question. I think Sister Katrina should be back with us at the time.
I'm sorry, Sister Chica. Can you restate the question, please?
Submission. Is it a form of worship, or is it a suggestion for order in the home?
Okay. I think it's all of the above. Submission is an action that is needed by the individual for their personal lives, for their relationships, just for, you know, navigating the earth. Because if we look at what exactly we're doing, when we move through the earth, whether you go to work, whether you're in your own business, you're always going to come to a space where someone knows more than you, where you have to relinquish your will to what it is that you go to a mechanic, your car is broken, that individual, you submit your will to that individual and trust that they're giving you the correct information. So this is kind of what I'm talking about when I say that it is something, it is when it deals with the Creator, it is a form of worship, because we have to submit our will to the Most High. But because we each and every one of us have different talents, different abilities, different knowledge and wisdom, there comes a time, hopefully, as we interface with one another, that we allow the next one to go ahead and say, you know what, you know more about this than I do. I submit. You know what I'm saying? If you look at it like that, it's more general as it relates to the household. That, in my estimation, there are spaces where the masculine principle understands what's going on, and then there's spaces where the feminine principle understands what's going on, because that's her lane, that's her jurisdiction. And so what happens oftentimes is that when you put it across the board and there's not a give and take, there isn't a balance, it goes out of balance, because the thought is that, you know, you're feeling pain, you're bearing the pain to have the children, but you submit to me anyway. You know what I mean? And then there's this abuse, because there is not a flow of, okay, this is your area, I'm going to give it to you. All right, this is your area. But ultimately, as they're walking towards the Creator, as long as he's not off, then, you know, ultimately, because he's the masculine principle, the weight of the household and the onus falls on him. But in the daily to-day activities, if it's one-sided, it's going to be an imbalanced space. Because if he's in her space, then who's in his space? You understand what I'm saying? And so that's kind of my thought on submission. I think it's all of the above. And it's important for us to grow in our walk with the Creator. So with that, I'll relinquish the mic.
All right. Thank you for those words. I have two more people who came in, and so let me go through this. We're going to introduce them. And so we only have 4 questions for tonight. We have a large panel, so for time's sake, I might jump around and then perhaps get you the next question, or once we have a free round, you can go ahead and answer anything that you would like. And so we had Maxwell Goldberg, the creator of Christianity on Trial, on here. Maxwell, why don't you go ahead and say hello and let us know about your work and your platform. Thank you.
Okay, shalom to the panelists. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You sound kind of low though. Can you?
Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. Shalom to the panelists. Actually, I'm just listening in. You know, I understand, you know, how a lot of women look at the Israelite community. Even on my job, when women give me their take on the Israelite community, they always point out the negativities about, you know, how we treat women and things of that nature. So I don't think it's a fair look into the community. I think they're just outsiders looking in. But I can see how the women in the community feel how they feel right now and why this panel is going on. So I'm definitely going to chime in when I can, but definitely listening. Sometimes it's just good to listen.
Oh, that's a good take. Okay, but Maxwell, I want to ask you about something because you had shared something on the page one day, and it was about a specific type of woman and how she was submissive. So it seemed like that day, perhaps you were having some, you have some frustrations about the Israelite woman and her ability to submit. So can you tell us a little bit about where your thoughts were on that particular day?
I don't really recall what you're talking about. Can you refresh my memory?
This is when you had first came back and you had stated, I'll take me a Mexican submissive any day.
That was actually a joke, a little pun about what was going on in the group that day. But I'll definitely address that.
Okay.
From my past experience, and this is with non-Israelites, I'm just going to go over a personal story. Me in this walk, you know, I've been dating people. I was dating a Christian girl last year, and she was always contentious with me all the time. Everything that I would say, she would have something to say about it. I find that that's a trait in, you know, some women. I'm not going to say women of color, just women in general. And I think it has a lot to do with the women's lib movement, things of that nature. And if you go back to the Bible specifically does state that the man is the head. Well, Jesus is the head, Christ, Yeshua. And then we have the male, then the wife, and then the children. And I think a lot of women have a problem with that because they feel like the man is going to dominate over them. It's a fear type of situation. And then when the man does start learning about the Bible and learns his position, and he tries to put that down in the home, it becomes a really big issue. And I really think that this needs to be addressed from a biblical standpoint and not a secular standpoint.
Absolutely. I agree that it needs to be dealt with in a biblical standpoint, but so we just talked about how that is implemented, but we're not there yet. So I want to go ahead and first say thank you to Margie, who's in the chat, who is moderating the chat. Work it out, Margie. Thank you for doing that. But I also would like to introduce another panelist that came on. At first, we thought the men were scared, but y'all showing up. So Yahuchanan, if you could introduce yourself and your work. Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I'm traveling. I just dropped my wife off. You know, she had just got back and came back into the. Forgive me if I faded in and out. I'm on the road, but yeah. So you know, first of all, I want to say shalom to everybody on the panel, and I know a few people on here, and I listen to some of you guys, like Mayanah. I believe she's on the panel, and I listen to her. Is Mayanah on the panel?
Yes, she is. Mayanah?
Yes, yeah. I wanted to just give her props to say I listen to her. Shout out to Brother BA. I would say when it comes to submission, first of all, submission has to be voluntary. It's nothing enforced. So when somebody's being submissive, especially a woman, if she's submitting to you, she's voluntarily saying, hey, you know what? I believe in your plan and in your idea. And I believe that, you're going to do what's best for me. If we have children, I believe that you're going to do what's best for me and the children. So, you submit to somebody you believe in. Because at the same time, we are asked to submit to the Most High. You understand? We're asked to submit to Yah. So how could you submit to Yah if you don't believe in Him, if you don't trust Him? So I believe that's what submission is a part of. Also, when it comes to women, just a woman being with a man, her position is to influence. Whether that influence is negative or positive, that's a woman's role to, when it comes to a man. That's why when you see Satan, he goes to the woman at first. And what did she inspire Adam to do? She inspired Adam to disobey, disobey Yah. But then again, as we look into a section to where we have Esther, who's married to Xerxes, what does she goes and do to save Jacob and the children of Israel, or the children of Judah? She went and inspired that man. She put something in his ear, and that's the position of a woman. She is to inspire a man, whether to, I believe, to do the will of the Most High, to keep him encouraged, just like Moses' wife did. I yield.
Okay, thank you for that. Mayanah, sis?
Hey, and I'm here. I just keep putting myself on mute so there's no unnecessary background noise. Yes.
Okay, no problem. I have a diaper to take care of. Can you take us into the next question?
Oh, absolutely. I could pull that up. I believe I have it up. So the next question that we have.
Before you guys go to the next question, I did have something to say. This is Sister Katrina. I'm sorry I was back.
Hey, sis. Okay, welcome back to the conversation. Did you want to weigh in on the first question as it relates?
I did before you guys jumped into the other one. I'll be real short. As far as submission, what was the question? Is it a form of worship or
Yes. Is it a form of worship, or is it merely a guideline so that, or is it really lending itself to a guideline on how one should conduct oneself in the home?
Well, I think submission is a form of worship, but in this community, I think it's just a big misunderstanding. Everyone has to submit. The woman has to submit. The man has to submit to the Most High, and and to the Father. So if the man is not submitting to the Most High, it's kind of hard for the woman to submit. But when both parties submit, it's a beautiful thing. Submission is a beautiful thing. It has a lot of power, but it seems in the Israelite community, it's kind of getting, the women are getting beat over the head with it. Just submit, be quiet, don't say anything, like you have no thoughts or basically no value. You're just supposed to be my woman, be quiet, and that's about it. But that's not how the Most High he didn't want the relationship to be that way. I just think that both sides need to learn their role and what it takes in the role, but they both have to submit to the Father. They both have to submit to their head, which is the Father and the Son. But I don't think submission is a bad thing. But in the home, it like I said, it depends on the household, but it can be used as a form of bondage. Because when you think about submission, depending on who you talk to, it could be a form of bondage, but that's not the way that it's supposed to be. I just feel like we both need to just submit to the Father, submit to the Word, and everything will flow okay. And so, yes, it is a form of worshiping to the Most High. And like the other gentleman, the other brother was saying, you have to submit to the Father. You have to submit there, because if not, everything is out of order. But yeah, it's a form of worship. It is definitely a form of worship. And I just think that once again, it's all about understanding you know, we have to submit to the Father and the rules that he put forth in the word and the scriptures of what we are supposed to do. And that's how we submit, you know, because once we submit to him, it will be easy for our mate to submit to us. And I'll yield.
I really like that this conversation has gone in the direction of order. I think I want to revisit that a little bit later. Sister wants us to go to the next question, and so I'm going to go to the next question as it is posted on Facebook instead of the way it was prescribed originally. So our next question is, does submission assign a value to each gender? Does submission assign a value to each gender? Just to give a little clarification, I believe this question is asking if you're submitting, does that put one person in a particular position and the other gender in another position? And if so, what are the consequences to that kind of gender assignment? So again, the question is, does it assign value to each gender? I'll bring that question in the order that it appears on my screen. So that would be the first person is Ashanti. Sister Ashanti, what are your thoughts about submission and whether or not it assigns value to each gender? Sis, what are your thoughts?
Wow, that's a great formulated question. Does the submission bring a value to each gender? Is that the question, right?
Right. Does each gender become valued in a particular way? Does it assign a value? Does it subjugate one over the other, for example? Does it say that the person who is being submitted to has a different value than the person performing the submission, for example?
No. The male and the female, which are humankind, which is Adam, we both have an equal value in that. We have an equal value in that we're supposed to be following the Most High's teachings and instructions, of which the Most High put us on the earth to have dominion, to keep it, to guard it, to dress it, and that it may produce the righteous product and result for us. And I definitely want to get to that balance. So now it doesn't place more value of one over the other. And I think we have to be careful with placing more value of one over the other, because that could be putting the person in the position of the Most High Yahweh themselves. You know, we're not supposed to have any other Elohim deity power before or in front of the Most High Yahweh, right? So it's of equal importance, it's of equal significance, it's of equal value. And you realize that all of this is in voluntariness to the Most High's will, because it's the Most High Spirit who is driving our spirit to do these things. So with that, I yield.
Thank you so much for those thoughts. That was the voice of Ashanti. Sister Ashanti, we're going to move on to Brother B.A. He's the second on my lineup. So Brother B.A., welcome to the conversation. Again, the question is, does it assign a value? Does it, meaning submission, assign a value to each gender? What are your thoughts?
Hey, can you guys kind of bypass me on that question? Because I'm in the middle of the highway driving with my kids. So I'll get the next question. I apologize for that, though.
No problem, Brother B.A.
Travel and mercies, we'll get back to you. Sister, you're back?
Yeah, I'm back. You're doing such a wonderful job. Thank you for that. Well, go ahead. Did Katrina already speak?
Nope. It's Katrina's turn right now.
All right. Sister Katrina. Unmute your mic.
Are you guys calling me?
Yes, we are. And we're talking about the submission. The submission assign a value on the person submitting and the person receiving submission. So, for example, if I am submitting to my husband, is he of greater value as a person than I am. And so this stems from, because we see this on the threads, I see this on the threads probably weekly, where people try to tell women, you don't understand that you're less of a man, like as far as overall value. So do you agree with that or not?
No, I don't. I don't think it adds value or anything like that. I think both parties should add value to each other. And that goes back to both parties submitting to each other. I don't think the person submitting, I don't think they should feel less valuable because they're submitting, and the other person, should feel above because the other person is submitting to them. I really don't think that it kind of adds value. I mean, just to, you understand what I mean? If that makes sense.
I understand what you mean, because if I go to work and I have a supervisor, she is above me, right? She has authority over me, which is
right.
Where that idea of submission comes from. But, well, it's not where it comes from, but it's enacted in our workplace like that. But my supervisor is not an overall more valuable person just because she has that role of authority. So I agree with you on that. Let's get some other insight. Can I get Brother Sam? What's your take on it?
Okay, shalom to the panel once again. Does submission assign a value to each gender? And my answer to that question would be absolutely not. As far as individuals and value is concerned, both the male and female are both valuable to the Most High. As Sis just stated eloquently, that's where my mindset was. In order to understand that, for you guys that have, bosses and things of that nature, I don't like to use that term, but I think that's like supervisors or, the owners of the company and things of that nature. The owner of the company where you work at, your boss, you being a man, doesn't make you less than a man because or any less of a man than your boss who drives, maybe a better car, who lives in a bigger house, maybe has, a better education, he got a head start. That doesn't make that individual a better man or a more valuable in the eyes of the Most High. So, just to put it in perspective, that doesn't make that individual more of a man than you. In fact, you can be smarter than that man. You can have, a lot of the wise business owners surround themselves with individuals that are smarter than they. Than they themselves are. So, that's a common business practice for successful business owners. They want to surround themselves by individuals that are more ambitious, that are, more have more acumen in certain areas than they themselves, and they're confident because they're the owners of the company. And that individual that has maybe more knowledge, more experience than the owner, they're wise enough to understand that even though I have more knowledge, I have more experience, this guy just started 3-4 years ago. They realize that, hey, listen, this is the owner of the company, or this is the owner's management that they put in place, and therefore I have to submit myself or subject myself to their wishes and commands due to the fact that for the purpose of this job, not indefinitely, but for the purpose of this job. And that's what we have to understand is purpose. When someone mentioned that, when we get to, and I don't want to get off and I'll get to digress and I don't want to get into that, but the purpose, we definitely understanding the purpose helps us put all of this into perspective. There's a scripture, once again, I think it's Proverbs, the 31st chapter, says that a virtuous woman, her value is beyond rubies. It's invaluable. And so, submission definitely does not detract or take or devalue an individual. It definitely doesn't do that. Just as was stated, you being a woman, your boss being a woman, she's not more of a woman than you are just because she's your boss or supervisor for that job, for that position. Likewise, it's in the family, in the household, in that household, which the woman makes a home. See, the man has a house, and the house is attached to his name, is under his name by divine commandment, by divine mandate. That's why a woman loses her name, drops the name of her household, and takes the name of her husband, the household of her husband. Up until that point, she remains under the household of her father. As a covering for her, according to the scriptures. It's not taking value. That's her protection, and her strength is the man. It doesn't take anything away from her in that sense. And so, no, it doesn't take any value away, just as much as, you working for another man being a man, or you working for another woman being a woman, devalues who you are as a man or woman. It's just for the sake of that job, the sake of that function, that goal of getting that goal accomplished, of getting the mission accomplished, and in particular in the family, for the sake of getting the purpose of the family, because the family should have a purpose. It should have a goal. It should have a vision. And so the Most High is operating through the man, as the scripture says, and giving him the vision and providing him, with that vision. But it is oftentimes, as we see, the woman, the house, the home is built on the back of the woman. She's the one that's building the home and making the house that he has into a home. So that's why the scripture says it's not good for man to be alone. So the Most High decided that. So he made him a help meet, which we get into the purpose of the woman, which is to help the man fulfill the divine mission and the vision that God has given to the man. But that doesn't take away from the woman. That doesn't devalue from her, because she's just as much as valued and needed and necessary in the eyesight of the Most High, and in the family unit, and in the national government, of which the Most High himself established. It definitely does not take away and devalue an individual and a woman in particular to follow the biblical mandate of submission.
All right, hallelujah. Now, Sam, I heard you say that women are supposed to take care of the home. In what ways are men supposed to also take care of the home? Because I sometimes it seems as if the idea of participating in laundry or doing dishes or not cutting the grass, I don't receive too much pushback on cutting the grass and the things on the outside of the home. But as far as inside of the home, what things do you feel like a male should participate in as far as keeping up of the home?
Well, I think that's dependent on the situation. If the male is at home, and this is just my opinion. So if I'm at home and the wife is working and she's had to work 12, 13 hours or what have you by her choice. But anyway, it's no way I'm going to sit at home and I've only had a few business meetings or something and, had my feet up for the rest of the day or on, social media or something and make her come home and cook. That's just not something, because a woman's supposed to do that. I do that sometimes, but, I'm convicted by that. So that's not the right way, in my opinion, to do things. So as far as, the jobs, what a woman, I didn't actually say, I don't think that, the woman is to take care of the home. I said the woman changes the house into a home, but I'm one of those men. I change diapers. In fact, I prefer to do that. My children's mother was, young and things of that nature. So, and I had a lot of sisters and brothers, so I had more experience. So I didn't want, so I took, I had the most experience, so I dealt with that job. And I think that's how things should be. If the woman is wiser in a certain area, let's say business-wise, she has more business savvy than you, I think you'd be a fool not to let her be CEO of the company. That's just the type of individual that I am. That doesn't take anything away from you if you have a good grounded woman. But see, the bad part about it is that a lot of our, I think Brother Maxwell said this, a lot of our women don't understand either. I'm not getting on women. You know, we both have our issues. I'm just stating the facts. You know, but a lot of our Hebrew women don't understand, like, just because you make more money, you may have more knowledge, you got degrees, you know, you got all of this experience. That does not make you the head of the household. You know, you're to use those things to build just as the man does. You know, like I said, on the flip side of the script, you know, if the woman, you know, she has the job with the more demanding hours, and, you know, you only have to work 2 hours a day to make your money, and she has to work 14 hours a day to get the same thing, I think it's a great disservice to say, well, it's the woman's job to cook, when you could at least paid someone to cook a meal for her, tried to cook, you know, got with the babies or did something. I just don't think, or cleaned the house or paid someone to clean the house or what have you, to make her come home and do that. You know, I'm not that. So I don't know, you know, what the rest of the brethren is, but I'm not that individual. So as far as to answer your question clearly, I think it's dependent on the situation. Now, if you have a man that's out there working, and, you know, I've been in this situation, so, you know, I'm speaking from experience as well. If you have a man that's out there working 12, 14, 16 hours, and you're sitting at home and, you know, doing nothing, and you just crying about, oh, well, I'm not your slave, you can get up and, you know, fix it yourself. I think that's just pure foolishness, and this is why, you know, we're in the situation. We, men and women, are in the situation that we in because we're taking these European and other paradigms and cultures, and, you know, bringing that to our society, to our community, to our culture. And I think that's the problem in itself. But I, you know, define the roles, you know, as far as that's concerned, outside of what the Bible says that the woman's job is to do. Like I said, I don't believe in the whole barefoot in the kitchen thing, and that doesn't interest me at all. You know, you have to have a brain. You be going somewhere, we can have a conversation, you know, about what's going on. And so I guess, you know, to each his own in that sense, but, you know, that's just my paradigm.
Well, you know, the reason why I asked is because we do have some people unclear about what specifically those roles are. And I think the roles is based off of the need, what complements one another, where your strengths lie. And that is what determines the roles, not that she's a woman and he's a man, and so therefore these are the jobs you're supposed to do around the house. So I think that people need to understand that if your husband is a better cook than you, then let him go ahead and cook. But if you like to get out there and cut the grass, you know, it's good exercise, especially in hot Texas, you know, then go ahead and cut the grass. Now, people might look at that like, isn't that backwards? But where are your strengths? And so I think if the man is the leader, he should be the main one who assesses, you know, I see she has the strength for this, so I'm going to go ahead and ask her to do this. Delegation, okay? And so when you delegate, you definitely want a strong woman there who can step up to the plate rather than, you know, I hate to say this, I don't want to say a weak woman, but there are weak women out there who will look for direction in every step to her man and feel like she's doing a great thing. Unfortunately, that's not a great thing, because when somebody has to ask you step by step, it becomes annoying. And then you want to say, go ahead and take some initiative. Well, if she's unable to, or if that's what you liked about her in the first place, then the change up later down the road can be destructive for the relationship. So just telling you to consider that, men out there and women out there. What type of woman do you want to be? if you don't know already. So let's go ahead and go to Emunah. Would you like to weigh in on this question?
I'm sorry, I was all ready, then the babies turned up on me. Oh, the question.
I understand.
You know how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get the question again for me, please?
Yeah, it is. Does submission assign value to each gender? So if I'm submitting to my husband, is he more valuable as a person than I?
I mean, I would say in theory, I'm gonna have to rock the boat a little bit. In theory, one would say no. In practice, one would have to say yes. I would have to say yes in practice. Historically, culturally, the thought is that the one who is being submitted to has more value than those who are submitted. For instance, when you have kings, when you have monarchy, the thought is that the subjects are lesser than in value than the monarchy. You understand what I'm saying? And so we see this all throughout, not just the Western world, all throughout civilization, because essentially what one is doing is giving their power. Each individual has power that's innate within them. And what you're saying is, I'm giving you my power, and that power now adds to the power that you have. And then because you're submitting and you're going under, you're lifting the other individual up over you. Now, essentially, it's not supposed to mean that you're less than, but unfortunately, I would have to say, honestly, that's what it means. For instance, if in this space and time, if one submits in their home, culturally, the female, there's questions like, well, do you work? Well, do you have a real job? Well, you know what I'm saying? So the thought is that the person who is in charge, they're really a person. They're really valuable. But you, what do you do? You know what I mean? And I'm not just speaking of, I'm speaking about my experiences. And I often say, well, what are you people thinking? So that's why I say what I say. Hopefully, if anybody needs any clarity. Again, in theory, it's not supposed to. In practice, culturally, cross-culturally, historically, yes. If you look at if you look at China, if you look at the thought that the masculine principle is the one who the feminine principle is supposed to be submitted to, and for the longest time, if it's a girl baby, they was doing some pharaoh type stuff. Throw them in the sea, murk them, because the thought is that the feminine principle doesn't have value. We see later on with the population issues, they realized, oops, they was wrong. But again, like I said, it's something that humanity is a good question, and something that I think we should be honest and look at, and that way we can really deal with, why a lot of females do not want to submit, because the thought is it doesn't have value. If I submit and stay here, then I have no autonomy. You see what I'm saying? I have to be totally dependent. Society doesn't, you don't get to check a box and then they say, oh yeah, good job, pat on the back. It really doesn't happen like that. So with that, I relinquish the mic.
Okay, that was interesting words, because so far we have went down a panel and the thought process has been no. And so Emunah brought out that in practicality, yes. And so in practicality, in my thought, it is the final say. So, I like to use a lot of media illustrations. So I'm not going to go to my favorite one, which is Wakanda, Black Panther. But I will go to the TV show, talking about the TV show, The Huxtables. One particular thing that you'll see is that Claire doesn't want Heathcliff to fix anything because he don't know what he's doing, and she knows that. And so she has the kids, oh, don't ring the doorbell. Don't tell your father that the doorbell's broken, because then he's going to try to fix it and it's going to cost us more money. It's like she already knew what was going to happen. But once Heathcliff found out that the doorbell was broke, oh no, here he goes. People are getting zapped, everything. But she didn't curse him out and then say, whoever, blankety blank, you are going to try to fix this and you're not going to do it right. She just basically reminded him of times and then allowed him to do that, the final say. And so that's where that authority comes from. It's the final say. But on the flip side of that final say, on the flip side of that authority, there is something called responsibility. Okay, so that means, okay, we went along with what you said. Or even if you go along with what I say, guess what? The responsibility is still going to fall on you because you are the leader. And so with that in the practicality, I can see how that would be as far as their final say, as far as their authority definitely being greater than the one who's submitting. However, if he is also submitting to the Most High, he should be demonstrating that submission that he would like others to give to him. And then if he's following the Most High Christ, then it shouldn't really be that hard to follow. It is a lot of times when people disagree on what to do as far as is the Most High present in this decision that you have going here, you know. But I feel that wives ought to be the reflection of the Most High and his will, and so that the man can be influenced or at least consider what she's saying. Okay. Let me go see Yahuchanan. You've been quiet, Yahuchanan. What do you have to say about this? And then we'll go ahead to the next question.
Yeah, I would say it all depends on a person's mind frame. I don't think the person who is submitting to somebody else is like less a valued person. It all depends on how you look at it. Now, maybe for that situation or that circumstance, they might be more valuable there at that point in time and for what it's called for. Because like I know how to make money, you know what I'm saying, but I don't know how to manage it. So my wife she can budget, she can manage. So I put her in charge of managing the money. You know what I'm saying? But there's just certain things that where she's weak at, I'm strong, so that's my strong suit. But where she's strong at and where I'm weak at, that's where I submit to her. And basically her opinion or what she has to say is valued more at that point in time than what I can say, you know? So I wouldn't say that makes you less valuable. I can't say that.
How did you and your wife assess where your strengths are? Did you have a conversation about it, or is something you just took note of? How did you assess that?
Well, you know, I just know I've always been bad at managing money. I mean, first, you know, I've always been good at making it, but managing it has always been something that I have not been good with. So, you know, my wife, she has 3 kids. She comes from a third world country, so she knows how to budget money. She knows how to say, hey, you know what? She knows how to make more with less. So that's why I put her in charge. Like as far as that goes, as far as hey, you know what I'm saying, what we're gonna do, she'll handle it. You know what I'm saying, consult with her. Look at the state of condition where we in, as far as like, hey, what we got in the pot, what we need to do. She knows how to manage that. So that's why I say, hey, you know, you do that. So that doesn't make me less valuable and then her more worthy. It just means that for that circumstance and that situation, that's how she's most, you see what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know if people watch sports. You can't put a point guard in a center's position. Everybody on the team is very, very important. But to get those rebounds and get those blocks and have that defensive presence there, that center, he needs to be in that position. He's more valued in that position than that point guard is. So you can't look at it and say, hey, you know what, I'm the man, and because you are a woman, I'm more than you are, or just because you know, you're submitting to me, that doesn't make me more than you. You know what I'm saying? We know that the Messiah said that the one who is the servant is really greater than the master for those who serve. So we see that. And then we also see, and you can't put it on a woman because you got to also see it like this. You can't be like, oh, I'm better than you, or I'm more valued than you because I'm a man and you're a woman. Because let's look at what in the beginning, he made man in the image of him. He made him male and female. So both of us are still in the image of the Most High. So how could you look down on your sister? I yield.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So far what I'm getting is that it's not necessarily an assignment of value as far as a person's makeup and their worth, but it is a role that we play, a role that carries greater authority to the person who is being submitted to. And so with that, I did want to go ahead to the next question. And when does she exit marriage? This is a big one, because I think I was looking at Under the Palm, and I thought that was the question. I was actually researching it. And so I had that question. I believe I had it before. And so let me go to Sister Mayanah. Can you tell us about when should she exit the marriage?
Yeah, absolutely. I did kind of want to weigh in on the original question. I know I was hosting it at the time, but I didn't get it. There were a few very interesting points that I heard during the course of everyone else answering, and I think that is interesting that a lot of it is based in different spaces other than our original Hebraic thought. For example, this conversation about names, we're talking about from a very specific U.S. perspective when we talk about names, because in other spaces, the woman does not lose her name, or the male's name is not the last name. My mother is from a different country, and the male's name is not the last name. The male's name comes first, and then the mother's name is actually the last name. So the name that follows the child is the mother's name. In places like Korea, for example, the wife does not take on her husband's name because she belongs to the father's clan. And so the name is always the father's name. She doesn't lose her name when she gets married. The children, however, carry the father's name. The wife does not lose her identity or access to the clan. Even in Torah, we can see that the women are understood by who their fathers are. When we look, for example, in the Apocrypha, we see that Judith is listed by who her fathers are for about 15 generations. And then there's and her husband was also of this particular branch, but she's not tucked under him. Instead, she's tucked under 15 generations of her own father's name. And so this idea that she loses who she is and that she comes out of her own branch to belong to the husband is not necessarily a Hebraic thought, and it's certainly not worldwide. This other idea about operating through the man, I thought that was a very interesting phrasing, that the things get operated through the man. And I think that goes back to my original idea about order. I really liked that there was so much conversation about order. And if we look at submission in the appropriate order, for example, if we understand that submission to the Most High gives a consequence of order between the couple, instead of submission between the couple being and the Most High getting submission by consequence. So, for example, I heard, if the husband and wife are submitting appropriately, then by consequence, they're submitting to the Most High. Instead, if the order is, if both are submitting to the Most High first, then the consequence is that there's shalom in the household. So that would depend upon the order and how that's understood. Proverbs 31 was another great example. When we look at the acrostic poetry, because the prophecy is the primary part, but then the rest of it is the poetry, and it's the poetry that we often refer to, verses 10 through 31. And in that poem, we notice that she is we were provided with a delineation of all the things that she is contributing in that domestic sphere, and not once is submission to the man listed. There's something for every letter of the Hebrew alphabet in that poem. Submission to the man is not there at all. But instead, at the end, it still says, but the man is highly regarded in the gate, and that he praises her anyway. So that shows that as long as the fact that she's doing what she is supposed to do, that the praise and the shalom is by consequence. It happens anyway because she's doing what she's supposed to do. She's in line with her purpose and with her function, with the design of her being the Iza Kanendo. By her fulfilling her function, this idea of shalom in the household is the consequence. She doesn't have to submit directly to him. She's submitting to her function. Vision to the man. That's another interesting thought. In Genesis 1, the vision is given to Ha-Adam. Male and female made he them. So it wasn't given to a man. It wasn't given to the masculine principle. We find that the masculine and feminine principle are introduced together. When we first get introduced to the word ish, the word for man, specifically the male in his body, ish and isha occur together. They don't occur separately. There's never a point where the man or the masculine exists by itself. Even we see the reverse explanation in Genesis 5:2 that reaffirms for us that the masculine and feminine principle always existed together. And so the vision was not given to the masculine principle alone to carry out something, and then she comes and assists him. Instead, the vision was given to them both, for them both to carry out, because they cannot do anything alone. That was always the idea. The Most High, from the beginning, gave us balance. What we are saying when we say the man has something and that the woman follows behind, that is necessarily an imbalance. And that does speak to a value system that is not Hebraic, that the Most High never gave. And I like the conversation that you had about cooking, because the very first time we are introduced to Yaakov, when we see Yaakov doing something, he's cooking. That's what he's doing. He's a man of the tent, home. He's doing what others would consider domestic. And that's a very interesting concept. Even when you see the gift that he winds up giving to his father, Isaac, it's a domestic animal versus the wild animal that Isaac requests of Esau. And so these ideas of domestication and who does what tends to be informed by where we are in time and in space, where it should be based on the Most High and what Torah has said, or what our Hebraic principles have said. Even this idea about the workplace, men and women don't have the same job. So there is no idea about supervising and being in the same job. We don't have the same job. We don't have the same function. We don't have the same purpose. We don't have the same energy. We're in different departments. We're in totally different departments. And even in a job space where there is a boss, I heard the boss or employer or anything of that like, the man, he doesn't get to tell you, or she doesn't get to tell you whatever she wants. You don't have to fulfill their every desire. There are actual laws on the books that prevent that type of mentality. If somebody says they want you to do something, you do not have to follow it just because they want you to do it. You can appeal that because there are laws that protect you. Likewise, we have laws in our culture that protects against the idea that we follow someone based on the position they have put themselves or imagine themselves. And the sisters gave, and I'll wrap it up here. The sister gave the example of Esther. And the Esther, there was a point where Mordecai was giving her instructions. Then there's a point where she says, you know what? I'm going to handle this. You go and wait for me to tell you what's going to come next. She stops taking orders from her cousin Mordecai, and she lets him know, I'm going to pray, and then I'll let you know. Abigail does the same thing. Abigail says, okay, Nabal is not making good decisions. And then she takes the lead. And when David sees her taking the lead, what he says is, I see the Most High in you. He didn't say, I see your uterus, your womb, and your vagina. He said, I see the Most High in you. There's wisdom in you. If not, he said, by your hand has saved me. And he believes that the Most High put her there. And that's what the men in Torah used to think. They used to think that when the woman stepped up and did her job, that the Most High put her there. And they didn't say, oh, she's usurping my authority, or she's trying to take the lead, and that's a very masculine thing. The idea there was principle and wisdom led. And whoever had it was the one that was making those decisions. There was no, let me do a genital check. When Moshe was approached by the 5 daughters of Zelophehad, he said, I don't know. Let me go beseech the Most High. And the Most High said, they're right. When Abraham was in his feelings, I don't like what Sarah said, he said, what? Let me go beseech the Most High. And the Most High said, Sarah is right. And Abraham just had to do it because the Most High said, listen, he's going to side with who's right, not who has which genitals at the moment. And so we need to be very careful about how we imagine our roles. If we put the Most High first, then we'll listen to his voice. We'll say, you know what, let me bethink myself and beseech the Most High. And that's how it's supposed to work. Everybody has their own role. We keep putting ourselves in competing roles. That's when we get into trouble. When we're like, who's leading? It's because we're competing. We're not supposed to compete. We don't have the same job. We just don't. And that's a mindset that we have to abandon if we're going to be able to do the reclamation and the rebuilding that we claim to be aspiring to as a returning people. And with that, I'll yield on that question. Sister, you want to repeat the other question that you had for me?
Yes, the other question was, when does she exit the marriage? Can she exit the marriage?
Right, I added that, can she, to the question. Right, because the idea here is that, and it would be correct to say that it was never the Most High's intention for a marriage to dissolve. But it would be likewise accurate to say that it was never the Most High's intention that there be any type of oppression or abuse in a relationship. So I find that it's very common for people to rely on the assertion, oh, the Most High hates divorce. The Most High does hate divorce, but he also hates contention. He hates abuse. He hates imbalance. He hates a number of things. And when we go against what the Most High originally designed and introduce all of these things that he hates, this other thing of divorce happens. And so the woman has the right to beseech her elders. She has the right to seek an advocate. She has the right to she has the right to shalom. We know that she has the right to shalom. How she feels is important. Very often we are told, oh, the Hebrew men think that the woman's feelings don't matter, or how she feels, or if she's comfortable in home, that does not matter. And that's that may be what modern Israelite men project in some spaces, not all, but enough, or unfortunately too many may think that way, that her thoughts don't matter. Unfortunately for those types of men, Torah disagrees. According to Torah, that upon marrying a woman, he is to take a full year from work and war. Now that's important because work and war is how you make money. So and that's how he also maintains his status in the community, by working by war. And so he removes himself both from status and income to stay at home with his wife to do what? Very specifically, to make her happy. So Torah in the law is written in the law that her feelings come into account, that she is removing herself, because not only are we a patriarchal culture, we're patriarchal, patrilineal, and patrilocal, which means that ultimately we go to live wherever the husband and his family is, which means very specifically, necessarily, we are separated from our own network. It takes longer and we have to travel further to get back to our own network. And so we rely very heavily on this new space. So we need to believe that we're safe here. That man's job is to make you feel safe here. That man's job is to go and create bonds with you so that you can bring forth righteous seed. You can bring forth children together. You need to be able to trust him. Women need to be able to feel vulnerable. All this conversation about submission to him, if she does it at all, submission requires vulnerability. And the woman has to feel safe in order to feel vulnerable, in order to put that kind of trust in a man. So can a woman leave a relationship, or if she leaves the marriage? It's not as easy. It's very difficult. She has to go through a number of steps. She should go to get an advocate. An advocate should intervene, and we see advocates intervening also in Deuteronomy. And that addresses the idea of, can she leave? There has to be an order to it. You pack up and leave, then you have left many, many things unresolved. And so if you separate it in that way, then you cannot remarry, because it's dangerous. It's dangerous for you, and it causes confusion for the other man. And then, because you haven't resolved what you need to resolve in your household with your husband. And so there's, according to Torah, there are a number of steps that you must take to appropriately cut ties and receive a writ of divorce. You must receive a writ of divorce by all means if you intend to remarry. Separation doesn't take as many steps, but it doesn't allow for you to remarry in any way, because we don't allow confusion in our culture. That I yield.
Okay, that was very informative. Very informative. I was actually looking at Malachi 2:16. I was comparing the Tanakh versus the King James version. And so the Tanakh version stated that a man should not deal treacherously with his wife. And it actually stated, let me actually pull the verse. I don't want to butcher this up. Just a moment. I'm sorry. Should have pulled it up. Okay, so the King James versions read, a moment. Judah had dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and in Jerusalem. For Judah hath profaned the holiness of the Lord, which he loved. He hath married a daughter of a strange god. The Lord will cut off the man that doeth this, the master and the scholar, out of the tabernacles of Jacob, and him that offereth an offering unto the Lord of hosts. And this ye have done again, covering the altar of the Lord with tears, with weeping, and with crying out, insomuch that he regarded not the offering any more, or receiveth it with goodwill at your hand. Yet ye say, wherefore? Well, why, right? Because the Lord hath been witness between thee and the wife of thy youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously. Yet is she thy companion, and the wife of thy covenant, and did not he make one? Yet he had residue of the spirit, and wherefore one, that he might seek a godly seed. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none deal treacherously against the wife of his youth. For the Lord, so here was the discrepancy in verse 16. For the Lord of God of Israel saith that he hated putting away, for one covereth violence with his garment, saith the Lord of hosts. Therefore take heed to your spirit, that ye deal not treacherously. Now in the Tanakh version of 16, it says, send her away. And instead of covering violence with the garment, his garment would be covered, I believe it said with violence, but I'm not really sure. And so that was a big discrepancy. I mean, the brother was trying to find out online, where did that come from? And so he was able to research it and said it was a mistranslation of actually the King James, which was like, whoa. And it's in line with the thought of Yahuchanan, and that he said that you cannot divorce just for any old reason, but fornication and sexual immorality. But the Tanakh version, so perhaps that's why they translated it that way. I'm not sure. But when we read that, it's like, okay, well, perhaps she cannot take the steps in that vein. But a man, if he is dealing treacherously with his wife, should be the one to say, okay, I need to step away from this. Now, I want to talk about that. Should that be the translation? Something that we talked about last time is that we have males who do not understand that one thing has to do with another. They think that they can cheat on their wives and then go to work and get a promotion. Well, it just doesn't work like that. And I feel like this either translation basically speaks to it, that if you dealing treacherously with your wife, then Yah is not going to take your offerings or hear what you have to say. This is again reiterated in 1 Peter 3:7, where it says, take care of your wives and recognize her as the weaker vessel, that you are both co-heirs in the promise of Yah. So lest not your prayers be hindered. Okay, so it says that there. So I just wanted to get out the message that once you deal treacherously with your wife, you need to consider, do you want to stay? Do you want to be there? And if you do want to be there, how can you commit yourself to being happy and treating your wife with love, kindness, and respect? So that was just something interesting I found out this week as I was researching. But we'll let Sister Katrina get on in here because I haven't heard from you. So are you ready, Sister Katrina?
Yes, I'm here. I was just listening and processing everything. So the question, when should she exit?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing that came to my mind when a woman should exit as if her life is in danger, or when her life is in danger, like basically if he is about to kill you, fighting you and things like that. But like Sister Mayanah was saying, it is certain steps that you have to take. You want to try to work it out amongst yourselves at first, work it out amongst yourselves. Then if that does not work, then you want to go to an elder, and work it out, try to talk about it. And then if that does not work, then you want to kind of get a couple of witnesses um, to, you need someone neutral to hear both sides to figure out, exactly what's going on. But like I said, if your life is in danger, you have to go. Because I have read, Israelites killing their wives, and it's just certain stories that I hear and I just cannot believe it. You think when people are Israelites, oh, you just automatically think that they have the spirit of the Most High, that they all following the law, statutes, and commandments and know how to treat people. And that's not the case, and these people are, are literally killing their wives. And I'd never seen such a thing connected with the Most High. And of course, he does not want, he does not like divorce, but at the same time, and like Sister was saying, hello, are you still there?
Okay. Yeah, we're here. Go ahead.
Oh. Yeah, but at the same time, he does not want us being abused and things like that, because I lost a friend when I was a teenager, her boyfriend killed her. And, we saw the signs at first. He would be abusive and things like that. But, we like, work it out, try to work it out. He would fight her, try to run over with cars, just be real abusive to her. And then he wound up killing her. He wound up stabbing her to death and things like that. And so coming over to this walk, and I hear stories of women that's going through things, and it's like you want to tell them, to stay, but it's like you have to save your life, yourself. If you cannot hear the Most High's voice, if you cannot let him use you like he need to, then you need to go. So I don't know. Like I said, my thing is, when should she go? When her life is in danger. But I think that it needs to be worked out between the two before any talk about leaving. You have to work it out amongst yourselves first. Try to do that. Try to communicate. Because some men, they don't want to hear. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk to other people about it. And it just kind of leads the women in a place of, what do I do? I'm being abused and I'm miserable, but I feel like my job is to stay and, and take this, and, because that's what the Most High wants me to do. And I don't know where that came from, but it's just the thought process, and
I do know where that came from, and this is where
you do.
From. Yeah, mm-hmm. Because it is. I heard two camps. I heard two. Are they two camps? I don't know if the other one was a camp, but one said, "Hey, if your life is in danger, run for your life." The other stated, there is no reason you should ever leave your husband. A woman has no rights to divorce, and so therefore there is no reason you should ever leave your husband. And so that is where that notion is coming from. Now, I will say that could be a good message on certain aspects, such as we have a lot of people getting divorced because they are unhappy. I just don't feel happy anymore.
That's something that you have to go in your closet on, and you have to go in your closet and you have to talk to the Most High about it. You have to fast and pray about it, because he will change it and he can change it. I know it may sound crazy to some, but it's the truth. The Most High is the only one that can change people's hearts and minds to do things. Okay. You cannot change people to make them a certain way. You have to go pray about it. You go tell your Father on them, and he will turn it around. Either he would turn it around or he will make it where you have an escape, if that's what it is in the situation that you're going through, And no, I'm not promoting leaving, leaving your marriage. Absolutely not. You know, you try to work on it as hard as you can, you know, but it's just certain situations. It's not of the Father. It's not of the Father at all. And it's dangerous. It's very dangerous, you know. And then you have kids watching, and that's a whole nother topic, but you know, I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. And then in the scriptures, it doesn't really say anything about a woman can divorce her husband. You know, it's a lot of scriptures. You know, all of the scriptures about the man putting the woman away for various reasons and things like that. But I never ran across the scripture saying that a woman can actually put her husband away. So maybe that's where the elders will come in and you know figure out that part. But you know, I just don't want, you know, our sisters just dying out here because they feel like it's right, you know, and their life is in danger, you know. So that's why I said the best thing to do is just go in your closet and pray about it and talk to the Father. And I promise you that it will turn around. The Most High will make a way, you know, fast and pray. You know, if not, you know, you get your sisters and brothers together and you guys pray together. Like seriously, prayer, it really works, you know. But I don't think that I don't know, you know, that's just how I feel about it. But I just don't think the Father, he want us to be happy. He want us to obey him and, you know, be on one accord, you know.
But here's a problem that I can see. If a young lady is in an abusive relationship, and her husband are part of a congregation. Well, she's a part of an abusive relationship, so there might be threats about, and if you go to Elder so-and-so about this, it's going to be, you know, problems for you later. And so where are the safe spaces, in our community in order to do that, to where there are some resources or that person is approached with some safeguards in place. And so that's something that I was talking about with Brother BA and Ashanti. So Brother BA or Ashanti, would you like to chime in here?
I'm back, if you guys.
Okay.
So what's the question?
We were talking about those women who are in abusive relationships. And so if they're part of a congregation with their husbands and they say, okay, well, I'm going to ask Elder so-and-so for assistance, you know, that husband, he's abusive. So he may say, if you do that, then you're not going to walk again, or, you know, you're not going to be in existence anymore. So where, as far as safe spaces within our community that people can go to where there are safeguards, are there any presently in our community where we can help those women out?
Okay, I've dealt with some sisters recently who have reached out, who have experienced abuse from Hebrew men. And I'm not saying all Hebrew men treat women like that, but for some reason it's common that these Hebrew Negroes think that just because they have a woman or they're with a woman, she's married to him, that she is supposed to be subjected to the iron fist. Now, we have to ask ourselves, are we human beings or are we religious zombies? And let me clarify. If a woman is in a marriage with a man who calls himself an Israelite or a man of God, and he is he is forcing himself on a woman or physically putting his hands on her, he does not know the Most High. I'm going to say it again. If there is another man who was married to a woman and he is physically putting his hands on a woman, he does not know the Most High. We have to get to a point to where we have to stop playing with these individuals. We have to stop playing with them and call it for what it is. If there is a camp or a bunch of elders that are telling the sister that she can't leave her marriage because her husband is abusive and he doesn't want to change, that camp or those elders or whoever it is, they are enemies of the Most High. I'm going to call it for what it is. People know me. I'm a straight shooter. I get right to the point. I am all for it. If a woman isn't with the person, yeah, she prays. She prays to that man. But if he has not showed any type of change, I am in favor of her walking away, because nobody is supposed to be in a relationship or a marriage and to be a punching bag. A man who hits a woman is a coward. That's just what it is. There should be no place that a man hits his help, his H.E.R, the one who was there to protect him, to protect the household, to guard him, to hold down the house. She is for you and you are for her. What do you have any type of sense of putting your hands on her? And that's the problem. The issue is in this community is that we do not know how to play our position. You can bring up the term H.E.R Conegdo to most of these so-called clowns who call themselves enlightened. They don't even know what that means. I am a witness to it. I have ran that by most of these brothers who call themselves Hebrew experts, but when it comes to that Hebrew term, they don't have a blue in the hell clue what that is. And it's a shame. It is a shame. So, brothers who are using the scriptures to make women be prisoners inside their home, they are enemies of the Most High. The line has to be drawn. And whoever these individuals are, we need to find out who they are and put them on the heathen list and put them on blast and show the community that we're not going to accept this type of behavior for so-called men who call themselves knowing the Most High Yah. And I fall back.
And so what that means is that we as a community have to stand up and provide safeguards for these women. So if you have a congregation, you have a woman who's going through that, then it should be a couple of him who are approaching him with the situation in love, and with hopes to gain some understanding and correct the problem. However, we have to make sure that that sister is safe to be alone with that person, even after this is brought out, after it's brought out to his attention, after he's talked to by elders, and that she's not receiving a beat down just because she did the right thing and sought the help and tried to go through the steps. Now, I will say, if you feel like it has gone on for so long, or it's gotten so bad, then you need to leave immediately. Leave immediately. Don't look back. Be like Lot's wife. Don't look back until you get to a safe space. Okay. Now, unfortunately, when you're married, a lot of things are tied together. You have a lot of business. There's the business of marriage that you're going to have to deal with. If at that point, that person is willing to go to counseling and things of that nature, you can consider that. But if it's an immediate threat, leave immediately and take your kids with you. Take your kids with you.
Can I ask something real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Like you just missing the children. When these elders are telling these women they're wrong for leaving an abusive household, they don't have a care in the world for the children because it mentally affects the children. This is a problem in our community. Rather you be Israel, you know you Israel. When it comes to our people, we are damaged psychologically. We have to get to a point to where we have to admit this. If you're going to heal, you have to admit the faults that you have. And it ain't just the man abusing women. The women abuse the men too. I have suffered abuse, so I understand. So what we have to do is we have to humble ourselves and we have to admit that there is a problem. A lot of our people, they don't want to admit that they have a problem. A lot of us get into religion. They become Muslims. They become self-righteous Christians. They become Hebrews. And all of a sudden they think that title somehow is supposed to cover up the flaws. No. When you call yourself by a representative, when you call yourself a representative of the Most High, and you claim that He speaks to you and you keep the commandments, if you are acting contrary to that, there is a serious problem. And like I said earlier, are we human beings or are we religious zombies? Because a religious zombie would just make it seem like nothing, everything is all good in the middle of an abusive relationship. They'll just make it seem like, oh, my wife is this, my wife is that, or my husband is this, my husband is that, and they'll just cover it up. We have to get to a point to where, and like I said, the children are experiencing these type of things. And then you have a generation that goes into thinking that, okay, well, in order for a woman to get my respect, or in order for a man to get my respect, I have to verbally abuse him. That is inhumane, very inhumane. And currently at this moment, I have got together with a lot of sisters who have been abused in these camps. I won't say the names. We all know who they are. And this is the problem about Israel. We don't want to ever correct none of the madness. We don't want to correct it. We want to just sweep it under the rug and act like everything is all hallmarks and smiles. It's about time that we look out for the widow. It's about time that we look out for the orphan. Most High willing, myself, Ashanti, and H.E.R and Sheik, we have been getting together and we are praying that we come up with some type of solution, because keeping the commandments is looking out for the orphan and the widow. But for some reason, everybody's claiming Torah. That's a big part of Torah that we don't ever hear nobody talking about. But everybody wants to make it seem like they're so self-righteous because they keep the Sabbath and they got a head covering and they wear a kufi and everything else that comes with it. So what we have to do is start setting the standard and provoke righteousness and provoke improvement. And if we don't get improvement, then we're going to have to start taking heads off. What I mean by that, we're going to have to start bringing these issues to the forefront and dealing with these things. It's never going to get fixed if we just keep thinking, oh, okay, well, we're just going to sweep it under the rug and act like nothing's happening. No, that is a problem. And the Most High will judge us on these things. People tend to forget, like the Most High ain't there, like he don't see everything. We're going to get judged on it. If we continue to ignore it, we're just as evil as the individuals who are doing the abuse. Number 4, back.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And so we have to start thinking about those things, Israel. I mean, there have been communities of Israelites, since I would say going back to slavery. But where's our infrastructure? Where is our help? Where is our work as far as what we're trying to do to help the women in our community, even to help our men? We'll sit up here and complain about the system. Or what does a man do if he cannot financially make ends meet? Well, if you want that question answered, why not build it up in your own community instead of asking for the same things from the world that we're just not going to get? Okay. So I'll go to the final question. It's a big one. It's a big question. And the final question is the average Israelite man in a position or condition to lead a family? And I'm going to add this in because it was hot topic on the threads. And it's still going on. It's still going on. And that is polygyny. Let's add that in the mix, because if you want to if you're not in a position to take care of one family, how then can you take care of 2? So I'll go ahead and I'll start with Mayanah. You want to go ahead?
My apologies, I was on mute again. Well, polygyny, I'm on record, quite a few records actually, and as it relates to polygyny. Polygyny as it's represented in our community is a complete farce. I'll put it that way. It's a complete farce. It is not biblically sound. It doesn't have anything that hasn't been soundly refuted in terms of how it's being represented in modernity. So absolutely not. Again, because the Most High is not we would agree, not the author of confusion, and has a very particular prescription for how he expects the household to look. Polygyny is not that thought. Polygyny is not that first thought. It's not what can be pursued, especially, and I guess the question is looking at the conditions that the community is in now. So I'm sure many people will get into their keyboards to be very, very upset with me for saying that this is not a biblically sound proposal. So I don't care. But I will move away from that assertion and bring us back into modernity and say that there are no conditions currently that allow for a man to pursue that particular conjugal pairing, or that it's not even a pairing, that conjugal construct. It's not something that we can do righteously in this contemporary space. Again, because all of the biblical standards that are required just simply are against pursuing it. Actually, I can't. I will retract trying to be politically correct in this moment. No, you can't do it simply because if you're claiming to do it because it's an Israelite prerogative, then you are dishonest and disingenuous, and you are being deceptive. And no, you can't do it. If you want to say, I'm doing this because I want to, I desire to, I have no faith in the Most High, and I have come up with my own solutions to my calamity, and therefore I'm going to pursue this marriage strategy, then do it at your own risk. Choose you this day. If you have decided that that is your course, then it doesn't matter. The question is not whether or not it's biblically sound, and so the question is a bit it loses its potency, because we're not talking about what the Most High wants. We're talking about what people want. Women who have lost faith in being able to be paired with righteous men and believe and bought into the idea of there is a shortage of men, even though just a brief look at statistics tells you otherwise. But if you have to measure statistics against rhetoric, then okay, rhetoric wins every time. But the fact that we're not invested in our own information and our own education is what leads to these questions and these situations where people are coming up with their own resolutions, just like we found in the garden, just like we found in Genesis 2. When we go off, we say, okay, we stop beseeching the Most High and say, oh, we have a solution, and reach a figs when we have the Most High. And so polygyny, if you're asking me the question, is just another fig leaf covering our nakedness instead of beseeching the Creator and going back to his purposes. With that, I yield.
Okay, so everyone should be clear about what Mayanah feels about polygyny. Okay, it's a no-no. And so I will agree with that, and let me tell you why. Because I actually posted a post that said I have a hard time believing that a man who desires polygyny knows Yah. And it was a 400, 500 post. And so the reason why I say that is because the condition in the position of the Israelite man right now, one, doesn't allow for it. You have to provide without taking away from anybody else in order to do this, where it will be, I guess, I don't want to say biblically sound, but acceptable to the Most High. Okay, so what was brought up was, oh, well, he made laws about it. Well, he made laws about slavery too, but then he says that he's for liberty later. Okay, so what does that mean? Is that a contradiction? No, it's not a contradiction. And it's not a contradiction when it comes to polygyny either. He governed something. He did not command it. He governed something. The Most High gave Adam one wife, and Lamech, a boastful murderer, took two. Okay, that's the first time we see it happening, and it goes down. So who are you following? One. Two, also, the reason why the Most High wouldn't make a law against polygyny, because he had in his laws reasons why there may be more than one wife. And we see that in the story of Ruth. We see that in the law on the kinsman redeemer. You had to go, if a man died and he had a brother, the widow would marry the brother if she didn't have an heir, and he would sleep with her to produce an heir, to tie her in to this family. Okay. And so therefore that might be a reason why there would result in more than one wife. Another reason would be in the case of, unfortunately, rape. If you raped a woman and took her virtue, guess what you had to do? You had to marry her. Why? Now, it seems crazy to us today, but because now you've taken from her father the dowry he would have accepted, and then you've taken from her her virtue, which could lead her into all types of different types of life. Okay, men actually valued virgins back then. Okay, and see, when you value a virgin, that's what you're going to get. When you value whores, then you'll get a generation of whores. So let's remember that as well. So those are the reasons. Those are a couple of reasons I could think off the top of my head why a situation and following the Most High's commands would result in more than one wife. What's the reason you want to do it, though? That's the question. What's the reason you want to do it? Are you marrying your brother's widow? Have you taken something from a woman and now you're trying to amend that by marrying her? What is the reason that you want to do it? Or you just want variety and spice in your life? Or are you trying to accumulate incomes like as if you're a modern day pimp? What is the reason you want to do it? And unfortunately, and I had to side-eye a lot of people on that post. I mean, a lot of brothers I talk to daily, and I was side-eyeing, like, what? You know? And it was really coming, well, from their fingertips, I should say, coming out that, well, we get to do this. And I'm like, but what's the reason why? And when the men were bold enough to answer, because that's what I desire. Really? You desire that? Well, if you're in a marriage, what you will know is that you have to take on that person's debt, their problems, their issues, all that. Are you successful in doing that in one relationship? Are you successful in doing that in one relationship? And can you do it double time? And so this is what we have to ask ourselves. Go ahead.
Just can I weigh in on a couple of things? The law you mentioned. One of the things that I often hear in terms of in support of the idea that the Most High regulates is the Deuteronomy verse where it says, "If a man has more than one wife," that verse does not regulate polygyny. It regulates inheritance. It does not tell you how to manage the women. It tells you how to manage the children. And so there really is no law on managing polygyny. There's not one. When you really look at what the verses are saying, the two verses that you gave, and I agree with you that the reason, and people do not pay attention to logistics, you cannot create a law against something when there are laws on the books that may prescribe it. Now, where there are these two laws which you did refer to, what's interesting about these two laws that could potentially cause polygyny, there are exit clauses. You don't have to do it. For example, and it's great that you brought up the story, the account of Ruth, because in the account of Ruth, the original kinsman redeemer rejects. He forfeits. He doesn't do it. And he gives the reason of, it will complicate my inheritance. I do not want to complicate my own inheritance, but as you do it. So in the law, that's permissible. The kinsman redeemer is allowed to forfeit the obligation, and it simply moves to the next kinsman. So this will allow for polygyny not to occur. And this is a law, like you said, this is an actual law on the books that could potentially cause it. And where there's a law that could potentially cause it, there's an exit clause, which by example, we give you a second example, proves this thought. If a man was to rape the woman, yes, the law says you now have to have responsibility for her. This is highly punitive, because if in this case you do marry her, the law, because remember, there's a law that says you have the right to divorce her. If you marry her according to legitimate means, you have the right to divorce. But if you gain a wife under these measures, you do not have the right to divorce. That's one. But the part that shows that this is something that's avoidable, if the father can refuse. So in that case, even though there's a law that says he should take her as a wife, the father can say, I'm not bringing my daughter into that situation. And once again, polygyny is averted. So in both of these cases where a law could potentially cause polygyny, there are exit clauses that can avert the possibility of polygyny. None of these things say polygyny has to happen, but they can happen, which is why you are right to say that the only reason there's no law against it is because there are laws that could potentially cause for more than one woman to be in a household. That I yield.
Okay, so let's get our panelists to weigh in on this. Ashanti?
All right. All praise to the Most High once again. To answer the question, are our men in this day and age able to be leaders of a family, so to speak? And you also raised the question about being able to be in polygynous relationships. I'll answer with this. In America, we have the opportunity to self-employ. A lot of people can actually take up skills to where they're employing themselves. They don't have to go ask someone to give them an occupation and in return for 8 hours of work get paid a certain amount of money. There is a right to self-employ. I know plenty of brothers over here where I'm at, they doing real good for themselves being self-employed because they took advantage of the opportunities they have in America. I know a couple of brothers who just got their PhDs, black brothers too. I will say that the women, before they get into these relationships or while they're courting the men, the women needs to pay attention to who is being shown to them, because a person can't help but be who they are. So a woman is to be looking for qualities of a husband that she would like to see. She's supposed to be seeing these qualities. She's supposed to be looking for if they have a moral value, an ethic value, a work, um, a willingness to work, a willingness to build. See how that person treats their mother. See how that person treats their daughter if they have one, their nieces, their cousins, their aunts. Also see if they have that drive. See if they want to be educated. See if they want to potentially get more education. See if they want to be volunteer of community work and service. See if they want to help the young men around. When you look at those qualities, you'll actually see if that's somebody you want to build with, to see if that's somebody you say you want to build with or submit to. You know, you ask yourself that. So a lot of our brothers out here, they say they don't have the opportunity. That's a lie over here in America. I will say that it does take some work in getting out of your comfort zone of what you've been taught. I know I and my husband over here, we go to sleep thinking about ways to make money and go to and wake up thinking about ways to make money, and we're looking at a lot of things to invest in. We talk to our brothers who have self-employed. They're investing not just in the Bitcoin stuff, but they're investing in other aspects as well. I have a family member who invested in some stock in Apple, and we got to teach each other how to do these things. So it's about life choices as well. You know, you look at a brother and look at his life choices. If he gets $500, is he gonna go spend that money on some Jordans and then just weed all day, or does he take that $500, maybe put $300 or $400 in an investment plan where it can make 4,000 in the next year, or are they wasting their money away? So a woman is to look for leadership qualities and see if that person is capable of leading. The Most High has already put the capability in us to be the creations He created us to be. It's just for you to see if that person is willing to tap into that and use it. And this is what I'll say about the polygyny thing. We see over in Utah with some of the Mormons and things like that, the people who practice polygyny. I forget the guy's last name, but Jeff, I forget his name. I was watching the documentary and they put him in jail though. The thing is, when you look at the people who practice polygamy, you know, which encompasses man to many women or women to many men, in this aspect, they have men who have multiple wives. They got land for days. They over here making money for days. If you ask them or look at what they do for a living, oh my gosh, either they've inherited it and then took that money and invested it back into what accumulates more money, but they got land, they got money, they have the means to take care of those women. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that, because sometimes those are abusive relationships. You know, what I'm saying is, if you're going to do something, do it properly, do it according to scripture. Okay. Now, if the Most High did allow something, yeah, He allowed it. Just because He allows to do something, ask yourself, should you? All right, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Does it mean you should, right? And I'll close with this. I'm saying a woman has a choice to do anything she wants to in this day and age. She has a choice to get married legally. And over here in America, yes, we follow the laws of the land. That's actually being obedient to the Most High. In a sense, we have to follow the laws of the land, and the laws of the land here are put in place where it's not legal to do or practice polygyny. You know, in some states it is, in some states it's not. So in the states that it is, yeah, if it's allowed, it's allowed. In some states, if it's not, it's not. The thing is, have some sort of protection clause. Back in the Bible days, you had a ketubah, you had a protection clause. Therefore, you know, if somebody was to split, or somebody had to walk away, or somebody had to move along because of some sort of abuse, then you're actually protected, and then you're actually held accountable. Right now, the Torah cannot be implemented in a sense where somebody's accountable, you know, like the state, like the state legalization is, unless you have some sort of written agreement down. You know what I mean? And I know a few people who write a written agreement down, and you can actually go to your state and see if they acknowledge that as a marriage clause, ketubah, right? So with that being said, yeah, the men out here are able to be leaders. It's just that women have to not be in denial of what they see when a man is pretty much courting them. You know, I'm an avid believer that people see things and sometimes they're in denial, or maybe spend more time courting them to get to try to know more aspects of the person to see if they have these leader capabilities. So yeah, the man is able to self-employ. The man is able to take care of himself. Reach out to people who self-employ, or have job opportunities lined up. I shoot over here where I stay. Ain't no man I know out of work, and if he was out of work, he wasn't out of work for a while because somebody actually helped him or reached out to him, say, "Hey, brother, they over here hiring. Hey, they over here hiring," or "Hey, I know somebody. You know what I mean? Got these opportunities where you can invest." You know. So that's what I'll say. I'll yield with that.
I'm glad you addressed that part, because I went straight off into the polygyny. But yes, so does he have the ability? Absolutely. Do we see it as a whole as of yet? Everywhere? Not necessarily. And I think it has something to do with social capital. What kind of social capital are you building? And social capital is the idea of the people who you're surrounded with can give you information to help you move along. And so that's something that we have to become greater at as a community. But I want to go to Emunah, because Emunah did a whole show with Ron about polygyny. And it was, first of all, nobody on the post was talking about anything that they were bringing out. And I felt very, very basically more informed about it after I watched or listened to that video. And so, Emunah, can you weigh in on this topic?
Yeah. As you said, polygyny, we've been talking about it for many years. There's many articles, for the sake of time, there's many articles that are available, written by myself as well as Sister Mayanah, researched from different aspects at litbomb.com. The show with Ron Divine was like 3 years ago, and it was really about having the conversation and beginning to dispel a lot of the misnomers that often we as a people repeat, you know, specifically Exodus, you know, the scripture that's supposed to be alluding to polygyny. And then if you really examine it, it's not, you know. And so we're having the conversation, and I think we've had several conversations on Under the Palm, as well as Debate Talk for You, and in other spaces. And we need to come to the table and be honest about what it is that we're suggesting. When we bring up polygyny, we have to be aware of just straight, you know, airlifting things out of the context that we find them in Torah or in the Tanakh, and then implanting them in today's space and time. And that's what I would say concerning polygyny is it's something that, you know, it's gotten a lot of people hurt, you know, following, you know, yeah, we could do it. This thought process right here. It's involved, you know, put together families, broken up families. Some people may say it works. So we have to be honest when we come to the table, because the reality is people are going to do what they want to do. They just want to find a justification that someone can't argue against it. You know what I mean? And so as Sister Mayanah was saying, if we be honest about stop trying to use the Torah as a justification and actually just say, because I want to, then people can deal with it better. But when you hide behind the text, when you hide behind our foreparents, when you hide behind the Creator, it makes it difficult. And, you know, it's the automatic trump card where, oh, you're going to hell because you're westernized. And so I think we need to deactivate the word, that it's no longer a trigger word, that it no longer allows women to get in their feelings, and that it no longer allows the man to feel like he has something over her. And once we do that, and it's no longer the, ooh, you know, then we can have healthy discussions around it. Because at the end of the day, as I said, people are going to do what people want to do. It's just that we, the people, have to be clear about what we're doing, why we're doing it. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on polygyny. I guess because I've said so much over the years.
Yes, but go back and check out that video. I mean, just even the standards of what has to be present to conduct it in a way where it can be governed. You know, it's like we don't have any of that in place. And to hear about the people who have to start over, you're a grown woman at 50 and you have to start all over because things weren't in place for you. That's a problem. That is a problem. It would certainly be a problem for me. But even in practicality, it is a problem. So now what are you going to do? And so please consider that, and please consider, as people advocate, and I'm sorry, a lot of people who advocated for it only had one wife, you know? So wait, if you are advocating for it, then why are you married? How many wives do you have? And if you only have one wife, why would you be advocating something that you would not do yourself? That's a question. And consider the other side of people not being cared for and provided for, because there is no governing or enforcement of any type of punishment if things go awry. So that's in our community all the time. I would say that. Before it used to be, oh, a young man wants to come date your daughter, they had to come meet her father. Now it's honk honk at the door, and your child is going off with some, not everybody, but going off with somebody that you never even met. And then once they do something to hurt your daughter's feelings, you don't say anything. You don't hold that person accountable. So therefore, we have a bunch of people who feel like I can treat him however I want. I can treat her however I want, because there's no accountability. There's no family standing behind this person and saying, hey, we represent this person, and if you do something wrong to that person, we will have to ask you about it, and we want you to be accountable to that person and to her family or his family about what you're doing. And we don't have that. Because we don't have those protections, people are going wild, and that is a problem. So I think that's all the questions. BA, did you want to weigh in on the polygyny or the condition of our Israelite brothers to take care of one family, maybe two? Brother BA? Okay, so I guess he stepped away for the moment. Let me make sure that's all the questions. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, it is. So we talked about a number of things. I want to give encouragement to women and men out there to basically understand that women have a lot of hats and roles to wear, and we have to juggle that every day. Even sitting here, you know, my daughter, you know, she wants her mother. So it is hard. It is difficult. I mean, some days I wake up and I say, I think having children was a young person's job. And, that's what I should have been doing when I was a little bit younger, because I'm like 37. And so I feel like I'm old. Am I going to make it? Lord, so, and then I have, on top of that, I work with children, well, high schoolers, all day. So it is a trying task to juggle this thing called womanhood. And so what a woman needs specifically from her man is support. She also needs inclusion. Okay. And so when you marry someone, you should marry somebody who compliments you, who can add to you. And if you needed to drop the ball, can run the ball for you if that need be. Not that it's her job. So I will say, just make wise decisions in who you marry. Make wise decisions about when to leave. Make wise decisions about staying, and make wise decisions about the order and the love, and limit the dysfunction that there may be in your households. And with that, I would say shalom. I'll let everybody have their final thoughts. And we'll start with Ashanti.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay,
here. Hold on. I got a lively house right now, I got people getting ready for tomorrow. Then the game is on, so my house is loud. My bad. But I do want to say all praise to the Most High Yahweh, Lord God of Israel, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Thank you again, Sheikah, for allowing me to come onto the show. Shalom to all the panelists, everybody who joined in. I really took in a lot of information today. I consider what everybody brings to the table, and just hope it provokes us to do some more self-introspection, some more studying, do some more critiquing, do some more examining of what we got going on within ourselves and within our community. I will say that this thing of submission, of course, we're not going to be done talking about it because we're going to have babes coming into the walk all the time, and we, are going to be here, be ready to give an account and to share what the Most High has imparted on us, the wisdom that we've gained, to give them some insight. So I would say this. I really believe that over here in this society, in America, I have to say that in America, over here trying to be walking Torah to the best of our ability, let's make sure that we understand we have a certain type of right in this land. Even though we're trying to follow Torah says, okay, well, you can do this or you can't do that. We're in a different situation in this day and age. So a woman, know your self-value, know your self-worth. A man, know your self-value, know your self-worth. Question where everything come from. Understand that our ancestors got off the slave ships and we were assimilated into a culture. And the culture we got assimilated into, yeah, we do think it's the Bible because we've done it for so long, and there are some similarities that we see in the Bible, or there's some similarities we see from the Hebraic culture versus the westernized Greco-Roman culture. But we really have to ask the Most High for discernment and ask the Most High what is of the Most High. And the whole submission thing, this is what I'll say. I'm probably not the best person to ask about submission in this sense when it comes to the state of the Israelite woman. I don't have many things to worry about, but I do know that there are the women out there, the sisters who do. And I will say, sisters, get some counseling to really understand your value, your self-worth. If you've come from a broken home, to get your self-esteem back on par. Because the thing is, if you don't really know who you are, you'll fall for anything, and somebody can come into your life and just start running game on you, so to speak. So um, that's what I would say. And once you know that, you'll know to have somebody you choose, because actually the choice is on you. You'll have somebody that you choose, that you won't have to go through this submission talk with. Because I know in my household, I and my husband make all choices together. I mean, that's just the honest truth. He don't get no last say in nothing. We do. We come together and we make choices on everything together. So I love y'all with the love of the Most High. Shalom, shalom. Y'all have a good and blessed night. Have a great and blessed week. Until I get to join my sisters again, my brothers again. Shalom. Ladato.
Shalom. Maxwell, I see you still on here. Do you want to say any final thoughts?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Shalom to the panelists. It was a nice show, but all truth be told, I still smell a little rebellion in some of the panelists. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that was said. And I'm gonna end it with this. Eve was made to help us. I'm not trying to dominate over nobody. I'm not beating nobody or nothing like that. I got enough money to take care of a wife. And I just feel like that's you're clogging the wheel. Without the clog, it won't work. So you are needed and respected. And I love the Israelite woman, and she just needs to be submissive. That's it.
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, so clarify this. In what ways do you think that a woman can demonstrate submissiveness? And then
just be part of the team. I mean, every organization has to have a head. My job has a head. That's just the way organizations work. It's not everybody can't be a chief. I mean, it got to be some type of Indian playing a role. Okay, that doesn't mean I'm gonna beat you, I'm gonna talk bad to you, and nothing like that. And that's how Christians think on the real. And Israelites shouldn't be thinking like that, period. Israelite women need to get into their Bible, okay, and read her role. Don't let people just weigh in on their opinions.
Okay. Well, this show specifically is the state of the Israelite woman. So we're talking about our condition and position, not necessarily, we weren't doing a study, but I do appreciate your input and for you coming through and hanging out with us today. And so let me go to Sister Mayanah for your closing statement.
Shalom, yes, Alala Tov, and greetings to everyone who listened in and all the members of the panel. I want to agree that it is critical for the Israelite woman to study. I said before, and I will say it again, where there are men without fear, there cannot be women without understanding. And the Most High says, we find in our wisdom literature that fear is the beginning of wisdom. And when we see where the men have no fear of the Most High and what he has said, women do not have the luxury of not knowing what's in the text. And so, as Brother B.A. pointed out, there are many men who have no idea what the concept of Isa Kenendo means. And very often we hear it stopped short as help meet, when in fact this is an entire phrase that the Most High said he would make a help meet for him. Meet is a 1611 word. We like to use fancy, antiquated words that we don't understand, even in the English. And that becomes the problem. That's why the ministry that I have is called Genesis 2 Ministry. If we can understand Genesis 2, then we can undo a lot of the damage that has been done in the family and in the relationship and in this false sense of masculinity that a lot of the men have invested in. and get them comfortable with dealing with how the Most High and the purpose and the function that the Most High actually has for the feminine principle, without them feeling as if it somehow compromises that masculine identity. Very often we hear a conversation about authority and no conversation about accountability, and there's always this disclaimer that we don't want to lord over you, but then the conversation leads to, why won't you let me lord over you? Why won't you just follow me with whatever I say and whatever I do? And so because we have these kinds of competing ideas between what is said and what is shown, it's imperative for the woman to know where that balance is and when to concede a point. And I want to explore just a little bit on that. I know it's our closing thoughts. Women have been put in a position where they haven't been able to rely on the man. And because of that, she has become unnecessarily and unduly hard against him. And she needs to relearn how to be vulnerable. She needs to relearn how to trust. She needs to relearn how to let go of certain things. But again, in the Most High's infinite wisdom, he created a space and an idea where the man has to earn that trust. There was never the idea that he can just present his genitals and be afforded all of these accoutrements and perquisites. That's not how it goes. It's not because of his maleness. It's because of fitness. And if a man is not fit to lead, he doesn't get to declare himself leader simply because he has a set of genitals, and that her uterus somehow diminishes her ability to have a thought that advances beyond his own. So that's what the relationship has always been. Hebraically, you look at all of the Hebrew relationships, it's always whoever has the wisdom is the one that made the decision. The genitals were not the deciding factor at all. And so I want to agree this has been a very important conversation. As Sister Ashanti said, it's going to be an ongoing conversation, because not only do we have new people coming in, we have older people that have not allowed themselves to grow in the knowledge. They've been, I learn every day, which is why I love being in a position of being able to communicate and teach people, because through teaching, I learn the most. Questions make me go and bethink myself, go back and check the text. Did it say that? Am I remembering that correctly? What does the Hebrew say? What does the context say? Or am I just repeating what has become comfortable and familiar? And so we have to be very careful not to let rhetoric outdo research. And so with that, I want to say Lila Tov to everyone. I look forward to our next session. And I want to say, I'm really excited to hear that Sister Ashanti B.A. and Sister Shika have joined the work that Emunah and I have been doing for some years, in trying to emphasize that the widow, the orphan, the elder, and the like, that we have all of these community responsibilities and obligations to each other. We have been writing about it, teaching about it, holding sessions and conversations, community conversations, and debate talk for you shows on those very principles. So every thought, every hand, every support is amazing and appreciated. And to have young blood come in and fill that, I was so excited to hear that you joined that fight. So hallelujah, all praises to the Holy One of Israel, the Holy One of creation. And with that, I yield.
Hallelujah. And Emunah, and we'll get back to you, Brother B.A.
Yeah, sorry about the delay. Again, yeah, these conversations are important. Lift every voice and sing. The more people that chime in, the louder we get, the more attention you bring to the issues that are not being covered, And so all praise be to the Most High. May we continue to not only have the conversations, but to allow ourselves and our life to be an example of what it is that we're seeking to share with the people. I think for myself, that's an important aspect of when we bring these thought processes to the forefront. Hopefully we would have begun to work them out, work the kinks out in our own lives, so that we'll have a testimony so that we'll have something to be able to say, listen, I'm coming from such and such, and the Creator has delivered me from there, you know. And so it's less of a selling, it's less of a trying to tell somebody what they need to do, more of a sharing and allowing the Spirit of the Most High to work through people. So with that said, thank you for inviting me, Sister Sheikah. May continue to have these conversations, bring more people to the table, and hopefully, you know, speak more in honesty about, you know, what is, so that we can get beyond whatever our shortcomings may be. So with that, I relinquish the mic. Everybody have a blessed night.
You too, sister. Brother BA?
Yes, with closing, I would just like to say all praises to the eternal mighty I am, the supreme being, the unseen being, known as Yahweh or Yahweh, or whatever you prefer to call him. I will hope that this conversation will be edifying for those who are watching live and those who are watching on the recorded archive on the YouTube channel. Support Christianity on Trial. Support it. Most High willing, we'll be more effective in reaching out to more of our brothers and sisters and other human beings as well. With that, much love to all on the panel. Enjoyed the dialogue, even though I had to kind of be in and out and deal with the kids. I'm thankful for the little bit of opportunities I had to speak my mind. I hope that it was helpful for those who are on the panel and for those who were listening. And with that, I'm going to fall back and shalom.
Okay, well, this is Sheikah Atiba with Christianity on Trial, and where Christianity is on trial every day, by the way. And when we say that, we don't mean it in a bad way. It's just in the way that we're questioning some of the customs, traditions, and teachings that many of us were presented with initially, okay? And then when she read the text, that's not in there. So let's continue to have respectful conversation on the threads. Also, please share the video. We have some people coming into the truth, and they need to know that there is a difference, not just of opinion, but interpretation of the text of the value of a woman. And in preparation for this discussion, I was actually looking at what others had to say, and there are some wild teachings out there right now. I'm not gonna say names, but I saw things, oh, she's supposed to, you're taught to go out there and get your education. And so, yeah, the purpose is so you don't have to depend on any man, right? But why is that? Because our mothers depended on men and they were let down. So there goes my saying, you show me an independent woman, I'm going to show you a man she can't depend on. Okay. And so on both circumstances, we have some women out there who are wild and need to watch their mouth at times, and not just for your husband's sake, but for your own sake. For your own sake. That is not good for your, it is not good for your health to go off, to be cursing people out, and to treat someone who's supposed to be a loving spouse like a stranger on the street. We treat our co-workers better than we do our spouses in most instances. And we all need to know that we're on a job and you can be unemployed at any moment. Okay. And so therefore, let us be mindful how we treat other believers, and that includes your spouse. Okay. Those are my final words. All praises to the Most High. Shalom, shalom, everyone. And we're going to post this on the page. Go ahead and give your comments if you weren't able to weigh in tonight, or on the top chat. I've been monitoring that as well. And so let me know what you think. All right. Have a good night.